That recording's now started. So anyway, so let's begin. So thank you everyone who has asked questions. When Joe asked the question on the Facebook group, we were thrilled and shocked by the number of people who reached out and had questions that they were asking. We tried to take a stab at summarizing some of those into the 6 topics that we have here. So optimizing the Google Ad Grant in general, in terms of the ads and the keywords you're targeting, also optimizing websites, which is a very important factor that we'll talk a lot about. Some folks who were newer to the Google Ad Grant just asking, what is all of this and what are the key things I need to know? We'll talk about guidelines and reporting, ad approvals and navigating sometimes some of the trickiness that can happen there, and then false/realistic expectations. There's a surprising amount of chatter on the internet just about, is the Google Ad Grant a great thing? Is it a waste of time? So forth. And we'll talk through some of that. If there are other questions that you want us to cover, please feel free to put them in the chat or to shout them out, and we will address those. And we'll have a Q&A time at the end, which will actually end up being hopefully a lot of our time together because we want it to be useful to each of you. So kicking things off, what is the Google Ad Grant and how can it help me? I'll give a quick overview of the grant, and then we'll talk about who is eligible, which actually ends up being most nonprofits. So in the broadest possible terms, the Google Ad Grant is a program that Google has had for the past over a decade. I want to say it's 13 or 14 years. It was actually started by Sheryl Sandberg, who is a very successful person. She's now the COO of Facebook. She wrote the book Lean In. Subtitles like Women Work and the Will to Lead. She's like a very prominent figure. She started it while she was at Google, and it gives nonprofits $10,000 a month to spend on ads that appear in Google searches. And we'll show an example of what that looks like. The overall goal is making it so that the power of the Google advertising platform can be available at no cost to nonprofits who are doing incredible work and making the world a better place. So that is sort of what the Google Ad Grant is in a nutshell, which many of you have probably heard, but could be new for some folks. Quickly, just to discuss eligibility, the Google Ad Grant will speak specifically to organizations in the United States, although it's in many, many countries, and there's information on Google's website about the requirements for each country, but focusing on the United States, any 501c3 nonprofit organization is eligible as long as you're not a hospital, a school or college, or a governmental entity. But if you're not one of those 3 things, you're a 501c3, regardless of your revenue, how big you are, how many employees you have, you are eligible, which is very sort of cool and exciting. To give an example of how Google Ads works, I'm sure everyone here has seen ads. This is an example query that we screenshotted for someone Googling running shoes. And you'll notice that the results at the top often have this little green box here that says ad. And these ads are very tightly tied to what's been searched. And so someone Googled running shoes, and here we have Roadrunner Sports, Asics, Zappos, etc. And folks can click on these ads, and when they click, they're taken to the website, for example, Roadrunner Sports and their running shoes section. Every time someone clicks, like if you Googled this right now and you clicked on this ad or whatever ad's showing up today, roadrunnersports.com will be charged for that click. And roadrunnersports.com is happy to pay that because they're reaching people who are literally raising their hands and saying, I want running shoes. And those are the people that this company cares about. The tough thing for nonprofits is that it's expensive. That ends up being like this click is probably going to be a few dollars for Roadrunner Sports. And for them, in the end, it nets out because they sell some shoes and hopefully they make some money. For nonprofit organizations, it's often a little harder because maybe in the vast majority of cases, you're not going to get someone like immediately donating. Very few people Google, I have too much money, where can I donate it? Sadly, but they do Google things related to the work you do. So we work with 211 nonprofit organizations around the world, managing their Google ads for them, and they have lots of different queries that they're advertising on. So we have an organization in the state of Washington that helps people who are coming out of the prison system be rehabilitated and get jobs. And so not a lot of people are searching for like donate to formerly incarcerated individuals, but a lot of people are searching for like information around mass incarceration or rehabilitation or those types of things. And so our client, we have ads running for them that take people to articles about those topics. They can learn more, they can see the impact that the organization's having, they can sign up for an email list, they can follow them on social media, and hopefully over time they'll be able to contribute in increasingly meaningful ways like volunteering, donating, attending events, etc. So that's the really quick overview of how it works, and we'll break this down into little steps. So when you're starting out with the Google Ad Grant, the biggest thing at the beginning is to choose your goals. And we spend a lot of time with each of our clients just talking about what are your actual goals. So example goals would be promoting events like a leadership conference, advertising for volunteers, reaching service recipients, building an email list, building a social media following, building new donors, increasing awareness for the work that you do, etc. Once you have those goals, you then go into the process of choosing keywords. And here we chose this promote upcoming leadership conference goal. So we'll look at different keywords that people might be searching. So some people will be searching maybe leadership conferences. Other people might think of it as a leadership retreat, not a conference. Other people might be thinking of it as resources for leaders, and then could be sort of invited to think about, oh, maybe a conference would be the best way to do it, etc. And in real life, we would probably have dozens to hundreds of keywords that we or that you would advertise for, because there are a lot of different ways that someone might be searching for what ultimately could be fulfilled by this conference. Then what we do is create ads. So each ad will be really tightly tied to the goal and also to the keywords that you're targeting. And this tight relationship is really important. A lot of times we see people who will have maybe one ad and it's for their conference, and then they'll just have like 100 keywords all for that ad. The problem with that is that if someone searches, leadership resources and they see this ad, that would make a lot of sense. But there could be something else that they're searching, like how to improve my leadership, or I don't know, different things that wouldn't necessarily make sense, but that would still go back to the goal. And you'd want to have different ads for each of those different little tightly defined sets of keywords. This also improves the click-through rate, which is the percentage of people who, after seeing the ad, actually click on it. And that is a program requirement of the Google Ad Grant. So you have to maintain at least a 5% click-through rate. So having these ads be really relevant really helps. And then once you have initial ads up, you then split test things to try and improve them. So maybe this is your first ad for the leadership conference, but then you run this other ad against it and you see which of them perform better. Google actually has a new feature called responsive search ads that let you provide like 15 different headlines and 5 or 6 different descriptions, and it will automatically test all of them against each other and find the best one, which is really cool, that we've been rolling out for lots and basically all of our clients because it's so helpful. And so that's the process. So it's this ongoing loop of making sure we're aligned on our goals, finding new keywords, creating new ads, testing them against each other, and then repeating the process and constantly finding more and more ways that you can reach the folks that are interested in what you do. And the $10,000 a month, which we'll talk about in a little bit, for the vast majority of organizations, they'll never spend the full amount, so they can think of it as effectively unlimited. You have unlimited budget to reach anyone who might be searching for anything related to any aspect of your work. And so that's a lot of what this is, thinking of new keywords and writing new ads. Some examples of things that the Google Ad Grant can do to be helpful are on this page. So driving awareness, these are all examples from actual clients. So driving awareness, promoting events, engaging donors. This is really cool. This Habitat for Humanity gets lots of people who are trying to get rid of different appliances or different things in their home, and the organization will come and pick it up for them and then resell it in their resale store to provide funds for creating new houses for folks on the Habitat for Humanity side. So really cool there. Attracting visitors to physical spaces, sharing thought leadership, selling tickets, basically anything that you could have someone come to your website and do will typically be something that the Google grant can potentially help with, which is cool because, of the 200 plus organizations we work with, they all use it in 200 plus different ways. So it's a very versatile program, certainly. Any questions so far I don't want to just talk and talk. So any questions so far, feel free to either shout them out or type them in the chat. And if not, we'll just keep rolling. But if there are, I'd love to answer them. All right, hearing none, we will continue, but feel free, always just shout it out and we'll address it. So this is a really interesting question that a lot of people asked is what should I expect and sort of what is typical for the Google Ad Grant and how do I measure success? A lot of times people will fixate on the $10,000 a month number and they'll view their success as whether or not they're spending that full $10,000. And this, interestingly, 3 years ago, this led to an issue where people were advertising on keywords that didn't necessarily make sense for their organization. So if an organization provides scholarships for low-income families to send their kids to a tennis camp, they would maybe advertise with the keyword tennis, which would lead to a lot of clicks, a very low click-through rate, and not a particularly good experience for the searcher because they could be looking for buying a tennis racket and this ad would be showing up and it wouldn't necessarily make sense. And so Google put in the compliance rules that many of you have probably heard of at the beginning of 2018 in an effort to move from what they call meaningless spend to meaningful conversions. We have phone calls with the Google Ad Grant team every month, and they basically, for the last 2 years on every call, they've repeated that little slogan, meaningless spend, moving from that to meaningful conversions, because it's their primary goal as a program is how do we make it so that we can actually quantify the impact that this is having on the nonprofit industry as opposed to just spending this monopoly money in effect. The amount that your organization spends, that said, will vary widely based on how large your geographic service area is, and also how much content on your website you have to promote. And we'll talk more about the website in a moment. But the average organization on the Google Ad Grant spends it's like $600 or $800 a month. So it's not a lot. I would say that many of those cases might be because the organization's not fully leveraging it. But sometimes you are fully leveraging it and you're spending $800 a month and you're getting, incredible conversions from people coming to your website and taking action. And it's the most valuable marketing channel that an organization has. So I would just encourage everyone to think about, if you have the grant or you're thinking about it, think much more about the output than the input, just like you would with a normal advertising campaign. Like if you spend $1,000, doesn't really matter if you received $5,000 in value, and if you spent $5,000 and received $1,000 in value, like it's the value ultimately that really matters in relation to the cost, especially since the cost is provided by Google. So that's one big topic. The other topic that we got questions about would be people getting clicks, but not necessarily engagement. Sometimes this can be because of ad targeting, and are you targeting people with the right keywords and the right geography? And also, is your website optimized and are you tracking conversions? We'll talk about that more as well, but basically anything on your website can be tracked using a really cool tool called Google Tag Manager, which is this free sort of supercharged version of Google Analytics in a way that lets you track if people are watching videos or clicking links out to other websites, if they're filling out forms, essentially if they're doing anything that Google Analytics can't necessarily monitor. So we'll talk about that in a second. So website, this was maybe one of our most popular questions, so we'll spend a little bit of time on this. The big thing that we look at if an organization asks us, is my website ready for the Google Ad Grant, is how much promotable content they have. And the way we would define promotable content would be under four sort of headings. And just to give a quick preview, we built a free tool called the Website Rubric, which is at nonprofitmegaphone.com/website-rubric, that you can use to rate your own website, but we'll just talk through it here. The 4 attributes of a page on your website that's really promotable for the Google Ad Grant and should do really well are: 1, is it focused on a single topic, which is pretty easy? And then 2, is that topic something that people would realistically be searching for? So for example, the example about like mass incarceration and stats around that, that's a very good promotable topic. People are searching for that. A topic that is recapping your latest golf fundraiser, people are not searching for that. People that are already engaged with you would love to read about that, maybe through your email newsletter, but new people are not searching about that. They probably don't know the organization is doing the work that it is, and they almost definitely don't know about your individual events. So that's the second thing. Is there topics that people would be legitimately searching for? The third thing, which we think is really helpful, is having a call to action on the web page. So once people land, they read the content, are they then encouraged to take a next step? And that could be signing up for something, it could be following you on social media, it could be watching a video, it could be viewing another page. Whatever it is, you want to make it really clear, this is the next step. Now that you've taken the first little step on the journey, here's the next step in the process. And that also gives us something to track and optimize for. The final qualification, or the final thing that's really helpful, is just having sufficient content on the page. We recommend having at least 300 words. Google analyzes pages based on whether or not they think it will fully and comprehensively answer whatever question the individual who is searching might have come to the page with. And so having sufficient content is a signal for Google that this is a high quality page, there's a lot of good information here, and someone will really benefit clicking on this ad and reading it. And that will make your ads actually show up higher in the list of ads if Google thinks the landing page is really high quality. So those are the 4 characteristics of promotable content. It is then a fairly simple exercise to just go through your website and see how many pages do we have that fit those criteria. And if you have it like 10 or more pages, you're probably in a pretty good spot. The other component that makes a big difference that you don't have as much control over is the geographic targeting. So if you are a national organization, or you have content that's maybe digital that can be consumed nationally, you will get a lot more people seeing your ads and therefore clicking on them because you can target nationally. If you're smaller, it doesn't mean that it's not a good fit for you. It just means that there will be fewer people that will be searching and clicking on your ads, which is fine. So those are kind of the main overall things that we look for. Other quick items are keeping your website updated. So if someone comes to the website and they see that the last blog post was added a year ago, it can sometimes lead to questions of, is this organization still up and running and active? And it can be really helpful to have a recent post so that people know, hey, this organization is alive and well. Websites that are mobile friendly are really important. The stats show that now more than 50% of all web traffic is coming through mobile devices, which means that, and it's oftentimes it's like 60% or more. Most people are viewing your website on their phone. And so that's often the better way to look at it. If you want to, as you're scrolling through your website and you're analyzing it for these purposes, do it on your phone instead of on your computer, because that's how most people will be looking at it. Another really important topic is if you can avoid having critical content or critical calls to action on either third-party websites or PDFs, we can't send through the Google Ad Grant traffic directly to either of those. It has to go to your website, which you own, or a website that is not your main website, but that you own. We can get that, like you can get that approved for yourself. But if it's another website, like a donation processor website, or it's a PDF, we can't send ads there through the Google Ad Grant. So we encourage people to, embed PDFs on their page, or convert them to text, or convert them to forms. And if you can have calls to action embedded in your website instead of a third-party website, it often makes it a lot smoother. And then finally, it is very, very helpful to track conversions, which we talked about briefly, but things like people filling out forms, people signing up for things, watching videos, clicking on important links, registering, etc. Most of these things, if not all of these things, can be tracked through either having a thank you page that people are redirected to after they complete the conversion, which Google Analytics can track, or if it's a video or a link or a button or something like that, you can set it up, or a form, you can set it up to be tracked through Google Tag Manager. The cool thing is that once you have conversion tracking in place, that data will automatically, once you set it up, and it's a really easy little one-click integration, that data will flow into Google Ads, and Google Ads will automatically use it to reach, like, advertise more aggressively to people that are likely to perform those conversion actions. So it'll automatically say, okay, people like this are more likely to fill out this form to register for this event. Therefore, when we see people like that searching, we'll bid more aggressively to try and get them to click on our ad so that we can get more of those conversions, which is really cool. This is all made possible through what's called a bid strategy in Google Ads called Maximize Conversions. And the Maximize Conversions bid strategy allows the system to automatically bid as much as it needs for you, which gets you past the $2 maximum that you can bid without using that. Back in the day, everyone was limited to bidding a maximum of $2 for each click. But now, if you have conversion tracking set up and you're using the Maximize Conversions bid strategy, which is just a drop down, you can bid more than that, which gives you a great advantage over anyone who might not be using it. So those are quick sort of tips on website optimization. And as mentioned, we do have this tool called the Website Rubric, which you can check out. It's free. It just, you don't even to put in your email address or anything. You just answer little multiple choice questions, and then it'll give you a score at the bottom, and some suggestions for what maybe can be done to improve that. Any questions on any of these website topics, or anything else that we've talked about so far? All right, we'll keep going. Final area, and we do have more content, so we'll keep going. I know that we only have maybe 6 or so minutes left. If someone does have a question, feel free to just like jump in and interrupt me, or put it in the chat and we'll get it answered. If not, I'll keep going through the content, since that'll hopefully be helpful as well, but more than happy to answer any specific questions. So with that, optimizing ads and best practices. There are a number of things that you can do to make your ads more compelling for people that are searching, and make them more likely to click on it, which will help you in a number of ways. One of which is that it'll help you stay compliant with the 5% click-through rate requirement. One of the big things is that you're given a certain set of characters, a character count for each part of the ad. So right now, the ads by default, yes, Judy, great question. We will send out a copy of these slides to everyone after the presentation. So yes, really good call there. We'd be happy to. The ads, jumping back, have currently 3 headline slots, which can each be 30 characters. And then they have 2 description slots, which can each be 90 characters. And we found that if you use the full 30 or the full 90, or as close as you can, and still having it sound like normal human speech, that tends to improve your click-through rate, because it tends to make the ad bigger on the page. And if it's bigger, more people are going to see it, therefore more people are going to click it. Obviously, keeping your audience in mind and making sure it's relevant to them and using language that they understand. The Maximize Conversions bid strategy, which we talked about, is a great way to advertise above the $2 cost per click limit. The only thing there, of course, is just making sure that you have conversion tracking set up and ready to go. Geo-targeting is increasingly scrutinized by the Google compliance team. And so you'll want to make sure that you are targeting the geography that your organization serves. Although you can feel free to be, I don't know, you can be optimistic in terms of that. So if you're, in a town, I would say target the town, and then target, maybe a 30 or 50 mile radius around the town. Or if you do work throughout a state, maybe target the state, maybe even target the surrounding states if people sometimes come. The way you can get into trouble is if you're a really small local organization and you're advertising nationally, or especially if you're advertising internationally. But as long as you don't do that, you should be totally fine. The keywords and phrases that you advertise for are really important. We spoke about this a little bit before, but you want to make sure that your website landing page is really tightly tied to the ads, which is really tightly tied to the keywords. So if someone searches for, donate my old refrigerator for the Habitat for Humanity example, you would want to have an ad that literally says, donate my refrigerator, or like donating a refrigerator, free pickup, book, call, or book a time now, or something like that. So literally the person knows you can solve my problem and you can specifically accept refrigerators. That's sort of the gold standard. And someone is much more likely to click on that than if you said even appliance pickup, or just even worse than that would be general. We can pick it up. We can pick up old household items. The refrigerator example is perfect. And then the tracking. The tracking is really important so that you can test and iterate and improve your ads in a way that not just gets you more clicks or improves your click-through rate, but also improves your conversion rate. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be what's really important, and that's going to be what your board or other members of your leadership team are going to ask about. People don't typically ask, what was the click-through rate? They typically ask, what did Google Ads get us this month? And the conversions let you say, okay, they got us, this many people signing up for our email list. It got this many people requesting refrigerator pickups. It got this many people X, Y, and Z. So those are some just general best practices that hopefully will be applicable for everyone. And that is the content that we hope to go through. If you do have other questions, would love to answer them. I have a few minutes that I can stay on and answer questions if folks do have them. Or if you have other questions, feel free to email my colleague, Joe. His email address is right there, joe.whipple@nonprofitmegaphone.com. He would love to answer questions for you. And we also have case studies if you're kind of interested in more detail about what's possible with the Google Ad Grant. I think we have 30 or 35 different case studies on the website. You can sort them by the type of organization, so you can hopefully find someone who's similar to you and maybe has a similar experience. Okay, we have a question. Where can we find information about applying to the to Google Grants? Great question. So the website for that is google.com/grants, and there are buttons there that will let you walk through the process. In short, it will first prompt you to register for a program called Google for Nonprofits. If you haven't already registered, and you may have for that, or someone from your organization may have, if you haven't done that, it'll prompt you to get a verification token from another organization called TechSoup, which verifies your nonprofit status. And then once you are into your Google for Nonprofits account, there will be a section there for the Google Ad Grant, and it will let you apply. And it has lots of sort of instructions on how to do that. Great question, though. And happy to, like Joe will be happy to follow up on that if there are other roadblocks that you run into. On our team, we have 2 people whose only job is literally helping folks, like helping our clients get approved for the ad grant, because it can be a sort of intricate process, but they do have pretty good instructions. Absolutely. Cool. Any other questions or things we can do to be helpful? Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We will be sending out these slides to everyone at the end of the day. We have one other webinar session for folks that it was more convenient to do it in the afternoon. So we will chat with all of them. And then at the end of the day, Joe will be sending out the link to this slide deck. Any other questions? We're thrilled to help out. And I really appreciate everyone taking the time. Thanks so much. And if there's anything we can ever do to be of help to you, just drop us a line. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day.